Tonight we have an alumnus of the DU-LIS program. His name is Jacob Ratliff. He is an archivist and taxonomy librarian at the National Fire Protection Association in Massachusetts. And he's also a member of the ASIST Online Education Task Force. He's also a blogger at tl-dr.ca, or Too Long Didn't Read. It's a blog that explores the intersecting worlds of gaming and information science, and I recommend that you check it out. And I'm going to hand the microphone over to Jacob and let him start his presentation. Take it away, Jacob.
Great, thank you so much, Ian. Good intro. Summed everything up pretty well. Presentation, mainly what I'm going to try and do is fly through a ton of information. Taxonomies are, what it means to be a taxonomist, kind of go through a lot of details. I'm guessing there will be a lot of questions at some point, contact information, follow up with. So feel free to do all of that and follow up with me with questions and things like that. Otherwise, half hour to go. So my goal is really to kind of give the nuts and bolts of what taxonomy is. So be able to have a good discussion about what taxonomies are, how they're implemented, and be able to get a job because of this presentation. I know that sounds like a lot, but really this will give you such a good, broad overview of how to really create a taxonomy. You'll be able to talk very well and speak very well if you understand the presentation in job interviews and people to really get a job and know the process of creating taxonomies. So here are the things I'm going to go over in kind of a basic roadmap, and we will go. How about now? Can we get a little, is that a little bit better now? Can't get it too much closer. Okay. Can't get it too much closer right now. Good. All right, so let's get you all jobs. So the big thing with taxonomies that we're really talking about is there's two different things that people think of when they think of a taxonomy. When you're thinking about taxonomy, what you really need to think about is categorization and classification, not navigation. Sure, they're related, but at the core, when you're creating a taxonomy and creating that type of information, we're really talking about the classification and where something lives, and really the cataloging something. That's basically what we're trying to do with taxonomy. Structure of what that is, so you can classify things. That's really the goal of what we're talking about. We're not talking about browsing around a website and going to going to a specific thing on a website. Part of it, that's not really what we're talking about. All right, this is the money slide right here. If you don't understand anything else I talk about today, this is the one to spend all of your time on. If you can see about this slide intelligently, this is going to be the thing to do. So let's go ahead. I'm going to bust out my drawing tools here. First off, let's start with folksonomy. Everyone is pretty familiar with what this is. So a folksonomy is basically Flickr, an uncontrolled vocabulary tagging system. Everyone puts in their own tags of whatever they want. Very little work goes into this, but at the same point, very little control. So good and bad with that, as with all of these on this. The next step you get with that is a synonym ring. Basically, you take the folksonomy, but you link all of the terms that are synonyms to each other. There's no other types of relationships besides a term and a synonym. That's all you get. Next level is a controlled vocabulary. It's just a flat list of preferred terms and synonyms. So if you go into a lot of the databases like LIS, 4011, I think it is. When you search all those databases and you search all those subjects, a lot of those are not arranged. They're not arranged hierarchically. If they're just a flat list of terms you can just pick keywords from, that's just a controlled vocabulary. The next level, when you arrange something hierarchically, that's when it becomes a taxonomy. Parent child relationships, hierarchical relationships, really wouldn't make something a taxonomy. So LCS is a great example of that. Hierarchical relationship. One of the things that I see a lot of times. Next step, this is where things get really confusing. So bear with me. Thesauri, not the traditional thesaurus you think of like Merriam-Webster. We're talking about a thesauri, which is an organization. Basically, it's a taxonomy. You're adding associative relationships between terms. A great example I heard the other day was you have the term, if you're making a taxonomy with toys in it, and then there's another section of the taxonomy that's talking about batteries, you create an associative relationship saying this toy takes this other battery. And that's an example of an associative relationship. They have a conceptual relationship, but they do not live next to each other. The last step of that, which is the most powerful, is an ontology, where you add semantic context to the actual thesauri associative relationships. Now, looking at my arrow up here at the top, this whole arrow up here, an ontology is wonderful. You get a ton of information from it, and you love it. But there's a lot of work and curation. There will be questions about this at the end. Here is an example of an actual taxonomy. Sound is patchy again. Sorry, haven't really changed anything. Here's an example of an actual taxonomy. This is Amazon.com. Everything you see over here on the left-hand side, this is the taxonomy. It is a hierarchical relationship of terms. You have the department, which is the parent of sports and outdoors, which is the parent to tennis rackets. Just a standard hierarchical relationship there. Pretty much every product taxonomy you see will look like this or be similar to it. A lot of e-commerce sites will look exactly like this. Newegg.com, another one of my favorites. It's very specific in what it has. So you have price as the parent, all the children underneath. The manufacturer is the parent, all the children underneath. Up here you have another level of taxonomy. Home, computer hardware, SSD, internal SSD. It's still a hierarchical parent-child relationship. Doesn't really matter if you understand what the terms themselves are. You just need to understand the structure of the information. That's really the important part to learn through a lot of this. Another example, which you should be very familiar with, Penrose Library, DU. Everything over here on the left. Refine your search. You can choose things to refine your search. Content type, different content types, parent-child relationship. Parent is the content type. Book is the child. Journal article is the child. Things like that. Subject terms. Again, subject term is the parent. United States, history, biography, all of the children terms. That's very standard, not a very deep taxonomy, but a taxonomy all the same. So, you're a taxonomist. You roll in somewhere and you need to create your taxonomy. You need to create your classification system. Basically, you need to go back to the slide where we were talking about folksonomies and ontologies and thesauri and pick what you think will be best for your institution. Generally, that takes a lot of user experience and a lot of statistics, and a lot of stats and things like that to figure out what would work for them, but some of it's gut instinct for you as a information professional. Quick thing to note when you go in and you are creating a lot of these things is you are not the expert of the content. You are an expert at creating the system and organizing stuff. That is where the expertise lies. You don't have to go in and say, oh, I'm in charge of all of this stuff. All of this stuff is mine. I'm organizing it. No, you're in charge of the system and the classification. Talk to everyone else in the company to see what they do. Take all their stuff and organize it. Build on that idea of all your stuff is yours and it remains yours. I'm just here to organize your stuff. So talk to SMEs who are the subject matter experts to figure out what they want. Marketing knows their stuff. The engineers there from where I work, those are the two groups that I work mainly with, are marketing and the engineers. All their stuff. You just have to talk with them, figure out exactly what they want, and really just organize it. You don't have to organize it how they say it needs to be organized or how it is currently organized, how you think is best. Like break down all those silos and organize it in the best way possible. The goal is to create a platform and create a system that really works for them and for the end goal. You don't need to go in there and tell them how to do their jobs or tell them how to do anything like that. Your goal is to take their stuff and take everything they do, organize it so that they can find it. If you haven't taken the information seeking behavior class with Chamelis, highly recommend it, because that's what all this is. You have to know how people are looking for information, getting their information, so you know how to organize it. That's really the goal here. A lot of information architecture and information seeking behavior. So how do you actually create the taxonomy? What are the nuts and bolts of that? Here's basically where it is. First two are so boring. Oh my God, they're so boring. They're horrible. But they're just reading standards. It's the driest thing you'll put to sleep. But I tell you what, you read them, it tells you the best practices of how to actually put a taxonomy together. A good example of that is creating a taxonomy. No parent should have more than 10 children. Why? Because the human eye, when they go in and start looking at a list, if the list is longer than 7 to 10 items, they automatically stop reading the list, and they will not see anything past the third option. So that is a best practice that you definitely want to follow as much as possible. There's a lot of little things like that in there that, if you know those types of things, they really make you a rock star, because you can automatically tell people, no, we can't do that because of this standard or that standard. It's very powerful when people don't really go in and go to these, create your taxonomy and say, oh yeah, I'm a taxonomist, so you should trust me because we should do this. They're not going to listen to that. Say, oh, ISO says, or ANSI says, or NISO says, they're going to back off and say, oh, okay, if they say that, if there are statistics and standards and everything backing you up, that's even better. Easy way to get started, there's this great book called The Accidental Taxonomist. It's also very great to give to people you're working with who have no information training. It's very fun, it's very easy, you can go through it very quickly, and it just gives people a very good basic idea of what information organization is, especially for. So now that you've created your taxonomy, following all those standards, that was the easy and the fun part. I know that's not how you want to think of it. You want to think, oh, I created this wonderful taxonomy, this wonderful classification system. I spent so long doing it. My job is done and I should be ready to go home. Not really, because the taxonomy itself is worthless without tagging. Think of it this way. If you had LCSH and you didn't catalog any books whatsoever, didn't put fine labels on them, and kind of put them on the shelves wherever you wanted, LCSH would be worthless. Same thing here. You have to take your taxonomy and tag your content, or else none of it matters. So you have to go in there and tag all of your content, and you have to decide who does the tagging, because you can't do it all. Now, you also have to decide, do we do new content only? So starting right now that this is done, we're going to do the new content. And then that's all we're going to do. All the older content is just going to stay where it is and do what needs doing. Or are you going to spend all the time to tag all that legacy? Those are questions that need to be asked depending on the amount of content, the importance of it. So how do you actually put the tags on the objects? There's two different ways to do this. The manual tagging area is pretty familiar to everyone. Worked with Facebook and tagged your face in a photo. That's the basics of tagging. Or you can think of it like Flickr, where you go and tag your pictures in Flickr. It's the exact same thing. It's just more advanced systems and different interfaces and things like that. The cool part is you can do auto tagging and auto classification. If you look at this example, you take your object, you run it through some magic technology, and on the other end, you come out with some tags for the object. Let's get into the magic of what that really is. Basically, what that really is the magic technology in the background is really just kind of bibliometrics, or kind of text analytics. All it's really doing is looking at a document, counting the number of words in the document, and saying, okay, the word taxonomy appeared 30 times in this, and so I'm going to tag it with the word taxonomy. Now, there's a more interesting part to this. Generally, a lot of times what will happen is it's not just straight text analytics doing this. It's doing text analytics and comparing it to your taxonomy. So if it finds a word in the text of a document and that word is also in your taxonomy, then it will be tagged. Or if it's a synonym in your taxonomy and the word appears in the document, then it will be tagged with that. So it's good and bad because, one, it's really fast. You can do a ton of content at once. The bad part is it's not always very accurate, as you can probably understand, thinking of text analytics, things like that. If you have the word library in your taxonomy, and something scans a document and the document says, I am not about libraries, I hate libraries, that document will be tagged with the word libraries. There's just no way to teach the system that, and that's why you're going to need some level of manual tagging no matter what. So it's good to have both of these. You can have the auto classification to really do the bulk of the big stuff, and then have a human look it over and say, this is wrong, add this tag instead, refine that. Good way to do it. There's a lot of different types of systems that can do this that are actually a lot of taxonomy software. If you're interested in what some of those are, let me know. I can get a list of them, kind of scan them over. Now the next part. All of this is done. Created your taxonomy. You tagged all of your content. Now you're done. Wrong. We're never done. That's the bad part. Well, not really bad, because it means you always have a job, but it's an ongoing process. Taxonomies are always changing, always moving. Think about a store, think about Zappos or Amazon, always getting new products. The products are always changing. That green shirt is sold out, now it's a red one. Like, there's always going to be a lot of change, new products, new technology, new everything. So the taxonomy itself is going to always be updated. You're always going to be getting new user experience data, new statistics, new analytics, all kinds of stuff to really refine the taxonomy, make it better, refine the system, make the system better, and things like that. Other side to that, who's actually in charge of all this? That's the governance aspect. You can't do it alone. I don't care how small it is. If you're running a blog by yourself, sure, you can do that. But if you're doing any kind of big web commerce website, there are more people involved in that. Who's in charge of it? Who is allowed to put new terms in? Who's allowed to suggest new terms? Who puts synonyms in? Who creates associated relationships? When there's a new product, who tells you there's a new product to put in? What type of documentation matters? Things like that. All of that is huge. This is also where we could start having a discussion about knowledge management. Knowledge management equaling job security, not really. Knowledge management is a discussion for another time. So this is where I plug and say, if you guys want me to talk about knowledge management, I can come at another time and talk about it, because it's really too big of a beast to kind of throw into a presentation. But this is where the KM stuff would really come in handy in terms of creating information sharing, breaking down silos within a corporation. What else do you need to know for taxonomy stuff? Here is not the master list, but a good one. If you do not know HTML or XML and you cannot talk tech with the IT department, you are hosed. You need to have the technical knowledge. That's just square one. You're going to be working very, very deep with a lot of these things. You need to know how to look at the XML, understand how they, you don't need to know how to do all of these things, but you need to know how to talk a good game. You need to be that translation layer between IT and the users. You need to be able to talk to the users, understand their technical specifications, feed it to IT, and vice versa. You need to understand the IT gobbledygook, translate it into words for the users that they understand, because they generally cannot talk to each other very well. Another good idea is learning about metadata schemas, because it's not necessarily always a taxonomy thing. I don't personally use them right now, but if I would not have learned about them, I would definitely be a lot worse off where I am now. Highly recommend learning a lot more about metadata schemas, because that's all a taxonomy is. Metadata. Pure and simple. Total metadata. That's all it is. So if you don't know anything about it, you really need to jump on it. Information architecture is also a huge thing of what I do, because information architecture is also referred to as data modeling, data curation, things like that on the back end. You need to know how to set up systems correctly so that the information can be found and used and gotten to users and them and everything like that. So that is very important to do. So I highly recommend the Polar Bear book from O'Reilly. I actually read that in one of my classes through Alex Martinez through the information class, so that was very good. For building good digital collections, this is actually something I learned from archiving, from my archiving time, but the NISO framework is the Bible for talking about good digital collections. It talks about the difference between metadata, objects, and how they really play with each other, and a lot of best practices. Recommend a good read on that as well. I also had a quick presentation that I did for Assist if you want to go and look at it. If you guys are all Assist members, which you should be as students, it's way cheap and you get a lot of cool stuff. You can go over there and watch my presentation. You'll probably recognize a few of the slides, which I stole for myself. Other than that, really it's important to just go out there and start working and get dirty. I know there's actually a taxonomy company in Boulder called WAND, which you might be able to talk to for a internship or a tour or something like that. We actually bought a canned taxonomy from them, so getting in touch with them would be a good idea. Spelling WAND is W-A-N-D, all caps. So they're one of the leaders in creating taxonomies and selling taxonomies. So they might be a good company to talk with around there. Other than that, I am set for questions. You can, if you don't want to ask me questions here, you can feel free to email me, on Twitter, blog, LinkedIn. That's it. Questions?
Thanks, Jacob. Well, I have a question. Are there any other questions? Maria?
Go ahead.
Oh. Well, my question is, how are metadata schemas and controlled vocabularies connected? Are there standardized controlled vocabularies for different topics? Or are you like outside of like the Library of Congress subject headings?
That's really one of the main ones. There are some other ones. A lot of them are proprietary. So it depends on. Metadata schemas are rare out of the library. Most of them are just custom built for different places, like the one we're making pretty custom. A good way to think about it is you put a bunch of fields, you put metadata, old vocabularies, old terms you can put in. So you control terms to put in those fields because personally, laypersons, things, whatever I want, creating taxonomies, and they think they're kind of people just don't understand education and just don't understand exactly what taxonomies do. A lot of education. Question is taxonomies for the protection agency, or do they really use? So this is basically the difference between technical speak us as professionals, lay. I was talking to a layperson at one taxonomy because y'all have, and that's all they really care about. They don't understand nuances. Most people don't understand of the difference between one taxonomy and multiple taxonomies. Technically, what I have created is multiple taxonomies. So the multiple taxonomies are really what I have. So I have different sections, like I have one for news and information, things like letters, journal articles, and things like that. And then I have a whole subject category section with information like fire and life safety, fires and emergencies, passive fire protection, active fire protection, and a couple others that are similar to that. But generally and technically what I'm building is a SARI with the potential to turn into an ontology. But I don't tell people that. I tell people I have a. It's hard enough to tell people I'm a taxonomist, have them think I stuff animals or want to do their So trying to keep it simple. Another question for Maria. So the taxonomies are all for one database of knowledge, but they're for multiple kinds of content. Okay, so there's a couple different concepts that you're actually talking about in the question. So it's actually not a database. It kind of is, but not really. It's not stored in a database. It's actually stored in a specific piece of software to manage a taxonomy. And the way ours works is you can actually connect that one piece of software through APIs to other pieces of software. It will control all of the terms and all of those pieces of software. So if you have a metadata field called keywords in 3 different pieces of software, that field can connect to the taxonomy software we have. So it's basically trying to create a vocabulary for the entire institution that can be used across multiple systems at the institution. So our CMS, which is our public website, it can be used on our commerce site, which is a completely different piece of software than our CMS, and it can be SharePoint installation. And all 3 of those places require keywords to be able to tag content so that that content can be found, but we can have a controlled vocabulary for all 3 of them. So if I need to go in and add a synonym or something, or add a new term into the taxonomy, I don't have to go into those 3 different systems and keep those 3 different systems synced up. I can go into the one piece of taxonomy software and change it in that one place, and it will sync it up with all 3 of those different systems. So that's really more of what it is. It's not a database structure. It's easy to think about that at first when you're trying to think of modeling the data and how the data works and connects to things, but it actually functionally works in a different way than a database. Type any questions? Hanging out for a second. Is that a proprietary piece of software? What's it called? It is a proprietary piece of software. It is made by a company called Smart Logic. It is called Semaphore. Type that into chat. And there's many different pieces of software that are like Semaphore that are made by different companies. If you actually go to Google and type taxonomy software as a search, you'll actually find pretty much all of them. It's pretty funny to find all of those things just from one simple search. So you can find a lot of them there. But yeah, definitely look at them. If you're working for a company or even as a student, you can probably contact them and say, hey, I'm interested in your software. Can you give me a vendor presentation? And they'll just kind of give you a 1-hour canned presentation that a salesperson will give you and kind of give you the overview of what their product can do. So that might be a good way to explore different pieces of software. But whatever software you get, the theories and concepts of what I've said here today and what you've learned in library school about information organization remains the same. Pieces of software are just tools to facilitate what you want to do. And it depends on the functionality. So functionality, you can never do exactly what you were taught in theory. There's always going to be limitations to that. But you can get pretty close and do a lot of good things because of the theoretical background you've gotten in a lot of classes, especially in the information search and retrieval. If you take information science with Chamelis, behavior with him, things like that. A lot of those courses seem very difficult at the time and don't seem very applicable, but every day I'm picking stuff from that class that I'm using in a day-to-day basis. It was highly helpful. Very in transition very well to my professional life. Any other questions?
I don't think we have any other questions here on our end. Thank you very much, Jacob.
No problem. Thank you guys.